Okay, so welcome. Today we are talking about whether or not you should raise your prices. Is your work even good enough?
Yeah, we get that question a lot. Jamie
All
and
the time.
Anna, is my work good enough to raise your prices? And 90% of the time, it totally is. But here are
hmm
some tips that you can follow to know if your work is good enough to raise your prices. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, so the hard thing is we can't actually see your work right now. We've had a lot of people actually send us their work and say, hey, is my work good enough to raise prices? But since we can't see your work, we can't tell you a definite yes or no. But what we can tell you is some clues for you to know if your work is ready to raise your prices. Before we go into that, Anna, when they raise their prices, do they have to go from $100 to $1,000?
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. No, absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
I think before we even talk raising your prices, you've got to decide, is this actually going to be a business for you, right? That's sort of the foundation. Is if you're charging $50, $100, $150, and you're really not being able to take home anything, then right now you're really just having a nice hobby that's at least funding itself, right?
Yeah, it's paying for itself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is great if that's
fun.
all you want.
Yes, except for the IRS is not going to really put up with that for more than 5 years. That's just a given fact. But yeah, if you want to make this a business, that's the first thing, the first step, right? But you don't have to say. I mean, I remember I was charging when I first started $70, and I knew I needed to eventually get to that $1,000, $2,000 mark, but there was no way that I was going to make that giant leap.
Right.
No way. So I inched. I knew that was a goal. I think that's the key. It's like, you have the goal, but it doesn't have to happen tomorrow.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the first thing that you have to ask yourself is my work professional? Now, it's really hard to answer this question because when we look at our work, either what I notice with people is they're ultra critical of themselves.
Yes.
Or it's like the person on American Idol who goes on and thinks, they think that their voice is amazing. And when they don't get on, they're shocked that they didn't get on. And so it's either that you are so picky about your work that you'll never think it's good enough, or it's your work so you think it's amazing. So here are a couple factors to consider. Do you shoot in manual? Okay, you need to really know and understand your camera if you're going to be considered a professional photographer, because there's going to be so many things that could happen, especially if you're a natural light photographer, that you need to be able to be professional about, and you can't adapt if you don't know how to adapt, if you don't know how to use that tool that you've got, which is your camera, right?
Right. If you're not shooting in manual, then there's no way that through an entire session you are delivering any sort of consistency. Because although our cameras are a little smart, they're actually like really stupid if you let them make all those decisions for you. And you will never get consistent results without shooting in manual.
Right. And not only manual, but also like my focal point, I actually decide. I remember my camera guy said, professionals decide where their focus point is instead of having their camera. Like these cameras have 50 focus points that they could choose from, but your camera can choose any focus point. You, in order to be the professional, you have got to be able to be in full control of that camera and decide where it's focusing, what the light is going to look like, and that sort of thing. So being able to troubleshoot is huge in being a professional. So those are some questions to ask yourself about being a professional. Just because you know those things, though, doesn't mean you have to go from $100 to $1,000, right?
Right. And then I also think if you feel like you're in this wishy-washy spot of, you're like, well, wait, what if, like, I think my work is really good. What if I am one of those American Idol people, or what if I am being overcritical? I know I am super overcritical of myself. Like, I still can look at my work today and point out things that I'm not doing all the way correctly, or things I want to improve on, that kind of thing. So if you are at all wishy-washy about that, do not be afraid to post a picture we have on Saturdays in the Snap Society community, we have CC Saturday, and we have an album where you can add your pictures to that album and you can get constructive criticism. Most of the time that constructive criticism is really helpful.
Yes.
And
that group is on Facebook.
Yes, it's on Facebook. If you're watching this on our website, you can join it right in the sidebar. Mm-hmm. And if you are, I might be pointing in the wrong direction, I don't know. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can go to thesnapsociety.com and click join the party if you want to get an invite to that group so that you can participate in that. Because getting some peer review, and I don't recommend doing this in any Facebook group because there are a lot of mean Facebook groups out there.
Right.
But I do recommend doing it in the Snap Society community because we've got a lot of really helpful people who can sort of say like, hey, and be prepared because maybe you'll hear that you need to make some changes and you need to improve, and that's okay, because if you've seen anything from myself or Jamie, our work has improved drastically in even if I look at my work from last year to this year, there's changes.
And it should always be improving, right?
Yes, it should be. Absolutely.
The other thing I would say too, to ask yourself, like, is my work professional enough? Are you consistent with your editing? Like, especially picture by picture, like in one shoot, are you editing 3 different ways, or do you have a consistency? Because having that consistency, this is something that I did not get for a long time because I'm eclectic. Having that consistency does show professionalism because you are able to be very defined in what you're giving out, and your clients know exactly what they're getting when they're getting you. So those are a couple questions to ask yourself. If you're wondering, is my work professional enough? Ask yourself, do I understand my camera? Am I able to troubleshoot when things come that are unexpected? And do I have a consistent editing style? Now, the next thing is what, Anna?
Know your numbers. Mm-hmm. You have to know your numbers. You absolutely have to. So the thing with running a business is it costs money to run a business. Mm-hmm. And so if you're running your glorified hobby, then that means that whatever you're charging is basically just funding this business of yours. But what you need to do is be funding the business, the cost of running a business, like a website and insurance and equipment upgrades and editing software and all of those things, when you can fund that and still take a paycheck home.
Yeah, take a paycheck home.
You need to take a paycheck home for this to be an actual business.
And I think that a lot of times when we have higher prices, we feel really greedy. I felt really greedy. Mm-hmm. But when I broke it down and knew my numbers and knew my expenses, then I don't feel greedy because I'm like, wait a minute, why does it cost so much to hire me? Because it costs so much to run a business, Right. When you actually have broken it down and you have seen the numbers, you can confidently say, this is how much it costs. Because again, like Anna just said, you have to be able to pay for the cost of doing business and pay yourself, or else it really is just a glorified hobby. So what's the third thing?
The third thing is just knowing that it's never easy for us to raise our prices. Mm-hmm. So I know that when I first started out, I would think like, oh, once I do this, I'll feel much better about raising my prices.
Yep.
Once I do this, once I have a studio, once I have a better camera, like I can't charge premium prices and shoot with a Canon Rebel because that's what I started with. I had all of these things. Oh, definitely once I get an L series lens, then I can charge premium. Like then it's worth it, So you can't wait because it's not going to ever get easier. Yeah. Honestly, knowing your numbers is the only thing that's going to make it easier. Mm-hmm. But really, it's never going to actually just be fully easy and feel completely safe and wonderful and happy. It's stressful, and that's just a fact of life, right?
Well, I think also when you have a business model, when you have a defined business model, so in our business model, we're start to finish. And you guys have heard us say this a lot, and it was not easy for us to change to in-person sales, and that's why we're so adamant about it, because we believe in it because it works, but we also know it's not easy. But once we got to that place where we were willing to make some changes in order to make more money, that was like a defining point. So we changed our business model, and when we changed our business model, then we also changed our prices at that same time. And so that's always nice to have that defining moment.
I do. I think that helps in being, I think it helps, especially if you have current clients. It helps you psychologically justify to them of it, like, yes, my prices are raising, but now you also get heirloom quality products, and you get
services are raising up too.
You get all of these different things, and it's a totally different level of business, of a business model, and so that's why it all makes sense to your clients.
So I'm hearing in my head people saying, but I live in a small town. I live in a small town, and nobody will pay these prices. No way will people pay these prices. And I want to tell you about somebody who took photography. She already knew her prices. Her work is beautiful. And she raised her prices. She did all the business model stuff, all of that. And then she moved. She moved to a small town. But she had already done this, and she already had her prices established. And all of the photographers in that town, because, she built community with other photographers, and she found out, these are the prices. They're all shoot and burn. And she let them know what her prices were. And they were like, nobody will ever pay those prices. Yeah, good luck. And she could have just crumbled at that point, and she didn't. And because of that, she has some of those clients from those other photographers that were only paying $100 or $200 have paid her $1,000 or $2,000 because those were her prices. That was her model. And because she gave them a full service. So,
and she's becoming well known in that small community as the photographer.
And that's a great thing about, I think we can always say there's positives and negatives in living in a small town. There's positives and negatives in living in a big city. Yes, I can pull from thousands and thousands of people, but guess what? I am also a little fish in this big sea. Or you can say, I am a photographer in a small town, nobody will pay my prices. Or you can reframe that and you can say, it's so much easier for me to become the photographer in this town.
To become well known.
Yeah. So you have to come up with ways that you're going to actually set yourself apart from all the other photographers if you're going to charge those premium prices.
Yeah, and I think one more thing to add is that it's really important in all of these changes that you're making and all these fears that you're going through is to have a community around you cheering you on. And it doesn't necessarily, I'm pretty sure Rachel's actual community was not cheering her on, like that community of photographers.
No.
But she had the Snap Society group, but she also had the Pro Photography group, which is a lot closer knit group of women photographers. Actually, we do have some men too.
Yeah.
Really cheering her on. And when we second guess ourselves, because for real, you guys, being a solopreneur, I don't know if I'm the only one who does this, but I fret. I fret over every decision I have to make in my business. I go to my husband. Now I have Jamie. You've got to have somebody to bounce those ideas off of. And for somebody to sort of just be behind you and say, it's going to be okay. You can
Especially when you've made a big change and it doesn't work right away. Then you really need to have those cheerleaders around you. Because just because it doesn't work right away doesn't mean it's not going to work at all. So if you're asking yourself, should I raise my prices? Is my work good enough? How do I know? These 3 key things should help you out. Is your work professional? Are you a professional with your camera, with your editing style? Do you know your numbers? Do you know why you're charging the prices that you want to charge? And are you taking yourself seriously? Is this truly a business, or is it a hobby that pays for itself? So those are the 3 things that you need to ask yourself, and I think that those will give you some answers as to whether or not you should raise your prices.
Absolutely. So if you want to learn more about those different steps to charging premium prices, you can go ahead and click the link below. As you can tell, this whole month we're sort of talking about raising your prices, about doing in-person sales. You can go back on some of our past coffee talks and see what we've been talking about. But that's what we're dedicated this month to. So click the link below if you want to download our photographer's cheat sheet to charging premium prices. That'll get you started a little bit and then also get you plugged into an upcoming challenge that we're doing, a profit challenge that we're doing for you guys to really learn your numbers a little bit more. and all that good stuff. So make sure you click that link below, and we will see you next time.